People say today we need to pray. Yes, we do. We should pray, and we should also listen to the prayers we say. Prayers teach us not only how to speak to God, but what God says to us. Take the Our Father, the Lord's Prayer, for example. Probably one of the first prayers we learned, the prayer Jesus taught his disciples when they asked him to teach them how to pray. We need to pray that prayer these days. I find myself listening to the last words of that prayer. Lead us not into temptation. What are the temptations we're facing in this pandemic? We're facing a lot of fear today. The whole world seems to be falling apart. The biggest temptation we face when we face something fearful is to lose hope. When you lose hope, you stop living. You withdraw from life. That's despair. When you lose hope, you also begin to trust in the wrong things. That's presumption. So lead us not into the temptations of presumption and despair. This pandemic began when we were beginning the season of Lent. If you remember, the first Sunday of Lent, we read the story of Jesus in the desert, hungry and thirsty, tempted by the devil. A very symbolic story, hard for us literal-minded people to understand. But I think the basic lesson of that story is clear. When you're in the desert, hungry and thirsty, you're going to be tempted. We're in the desert now. Matthew's Gospel points out 3 ways that Jesus was tempted. He's hungry. And Satan says, snap your finger and turn those stones into bread. It would be wonderful if we could snap our fingers now and everything would be okay. Everything would be the same again, right away. But it looks like it won't be that way. There's no quick fix out there. It looks like we're going to be in the desert for some time. But as the temptation story indicates, God is in the desert. And God will get us through. Satan also tempts Jesus with power over all the kingdoms of the world. The Gospel says that. So you can be in charge of everybody. They'll all do what you want, what you think should be done. And Jesus rejected that temptation. Jesus rejects the temptation to absolute human power. In his own lifetime, you can see him refusing that temptation. But one of our temptations is that we would like some absolute human power to come along and solve this crisis here and now. Like science, for example. We would like science, the scientists, to create a perfect world. Or we would like some political system, for example, that would do the same thing. But that's an unreal temptation. Human power will always be limited, subject to the power of God. And finally, Satan tempts Jesus with the temptation against God. That's the third temptation the Gospel speaks about. Throw yourself down from the pinnacle of the temple. God's angels will bear you up. That sounds like a temptation to control God, to tell God what to do, to work out things according to our will, not God's will. And when we don't get our way, we turn away. But to all those temptations, Jesus' answer is the same. You shall not tempt the Lord your God. We need to pray today, and we need to listen to what our prayers say. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. And God promises to do that. God is our Father. So let's say that prayer together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. And give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.